Unveiled, the incredible and touching truth about NYX, goddess of night and hidden prophecy. The stars flickered like distant candles while Sarah Harper scrubbed her hands under the cold faucet, preparing for another long night shift. In the small Appalachian clinic, the hum of fluorescent lights felt like a weight pressing down, an echo of familiar struggles, unending debts, and a shared history of hardship among the town's residents. With each passing hour, exhaustion clawed at her resolve, but tonight, she felt the stirrings of something more profound beneath her skin, a pull toward her grandmother's attic that lay curiously untouched since her passing. In an attic heavy with dust and memories, Sarah approached the first box, heart racing. She'd promised herself she wouldn't open this Pandora's box of old family chaos, yet tonight felt different. The attic murmured secrets only the brave dared to unearth. As she pried the box open, moth-eaten letters caught her eye, but what truly seized her breath was the tattered leather journal nestled at the bottom. Something instinctual compelled her to open it. As she began to read, the words blurred into the distant sounds of her patient's murmurs. Each stroke of her grandmother's pen unveiled convoluted tales of generational struggles, triumphs, and the familial threads linking them to NYX, the elusive goddess of the night. A chill coursed through her. The concept felt both ridiculous and impossibly stirring. Did her lineage truly harbor such extraordinary potential amidst the ordinary lives? The question gnawed at her soul, curdling doubt with ambition. The fleeting moments of calm in the clinic were often punctuated by the weight of responsibility she felt. Her family relied on her, not just as a nurse, but as the hope tethering them to stability. Yet, beneath the surface, dreams of scholarship and the promise of a brighter future clawed at her consciousness. How could she abandon the very roots that shaped her, just to chase fantasies whispered by the tales of her grandmother? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue understanding her grandmother's words could have saved her life in the clinic. Every phrase dripped with both wisdom and prophecy, urging her towards untraveled paths. Yet the allure of knowledge clashed violently with her loyalty to her family. Bodies sprawled uncomfortably on beds behind her, fragile and in need of care. Each face bore the marks of stories twisted with grief, hopes dashed. Would she be a coward for considering her own potential amid their struggles? As days turned to nights and back again, the attic whispered louder, each voice melding with the pain of her reality. Sarah felt herself stretched to the brink, a taut line ready to snap under the weight of legacy and ambition. The journal promised connection, a fate intertwined with NYX. Could revisiting the past reveal a destiny more than mere survival? Each flicker of hope tugged against the harshness of her present life, threatening to splinter her heart anew. Sarah returned to the clinic, burden heavy, standing before a crossroads she never anticipated, one path leading towards personal transformation while the other anchored her to the familial chaos she loved. The night deepened around her, heavy with unanswered questions, straining to breathe with the tension of transformation. Would she plunge into the unknown? Or stay anchored within her family's legacy, forever tied to expected loyalty? As the moon soared higher in the velvet sky, Sarah felt it press down upon her, an ancient weight of choices looming. In the shadows, awaiting her decision. As the nights wore on, Sarah found herself trapped in an internal struggle as fierce as any she faced in the clinic. Her grandmother's journal lay open on her bedside table, pages fluttering like wings in the soft breeze that stirred through the window. With each reading, the weight of her lineage pressed heavy on her chest, distorting her ambitions and grounding her fears in stark reality. The narratives of her ancestors resonated deeply within her, illuminating truths she had long obscured, a legacy fraught with resilience and the pursuit of something more. The goddess NYX, a figure of darkness yet also potential, began to haunt her thoughts, a symbol of everything she felt she was missing in her life. Sarah wrestled with what it might mean to connect with that legacy. What if her roots were not just chains of obligation but threads of possibility? Amid patient assessments and frantic shifts in the clinic, moments of clarity struck her like lightning. On one particularly hectic night, while reassuring a scared child in the ER, she noticed a glimpse of herself reflected back, the same fear in those wide eyes mirroring her own. It hit her then, healing wasn't merely a physical act, it was about empowering others to find their own strength and resolution. Did she not deserve the same empowering chance? Yet, even as the epiphany sparked within her, the suffocating aura of duty pulled relentlessly at her spirit. Family obligations surfaced daily, with phone calls laden with expectations, each punctuated by longing tones and reminders of past sacrifices. Would pursuing her dream dismiss the very sacrifices that had fortified her family? Was it selfish to explore a path divergent from theirs? One evening, she sat on the attic floor, surrounded by remnants of her grandmother's life, and closed her eyes. The air was thick with memories, tinged with the scent of aged books and dust. As she envisioned her grandmother's past struggles enduring war, loss, and the dampness of the Appalachian nights, she felt an unsettling fire ignite within her. It wasn't merely a longing, it was a call to arms. To ignore her potential was to nullify the very essence of her lineage. Days turned into weeks, and Sarah began to scribble in her own journal, each word a revelation, each entry a challenge to herself. To be true to myself is not to abandon those I love, she wrote one night. The words settled like stones in her heart, grounding her in the understanding that growth need not be a betrayal. The tension between loyalty and ambition no longer felt insurmountable, it became a bridge rather than a chasm. With her newfound resolve, she crafted a plan, a delicate mapping of her aspirations against the backdrop of her responsibilities. She envisioned pursuing her degree while balancing her nursing duties, each step a necessary fulfillment of her dual identity. That was her legacy, embracing both her roots and her dreams. Still, the challenge loomed, fear clawed at the edges of her resolve, asking her whether she was brave enough to challenge the status quo. The night of reckoning crept nearer. Would she have the courage to voice her desires to her family, to unravel the knots of expectation and carve her own path in the legacy? Every moment felt like both a culmination and a beginning as the weight of her decision loomed larger. Then, as she prepared to face her family, a knock echoed through the silence of her thoughts, signaling an unexpected visitor poised to upend her carefully laid plans. Would this person be yet another tether, or would they be the first push toward her liberation? As the door creaked open, Sarah's breath hitched. A figure stood silhouetted against the dim hallway light, her old mentor, Dr. Martinez. His unexpected presence felt both comforting and unnerving. When was the last time she had seen him? It had been nearly a year since he left the clinic to pursue a prestigious position elsewhere, yet here he was, a beacon of reassurance in the storm of her uncertainty. "Sarah," he said, stepping inside with a gentle authority that measured the room. "I hope I'm not intruding. I wanted to catch up. I've heard you've been doing incredible work." His words wrapped around her like a warm blanket, yet the weight of her thoughts pressed fiercely against her ribs. "Thank you, Dr. Martinez," she managed to reply, gesturing to the clutter of her attic, a sacred space now disrupted. "It's just a lot going on." Eager for the distraction, Sarah guided him to sit. She didn't want to reveal how tumultuous her internal compass had become. Instead, she seized the moment and guided their conversation toward her dreams, sharing glimpses of her plans to pursue a degree. "I've drafted an outline, nothing too polished," she confessed, suddenly vulnerable. "It blends my responsibilities at the clinic with what I hope to achieve academically." Dr. Martinez listened carefully, his penetrating gaze offering validation. Yet, just as he was about to speak, a hint of concern flickered across his brow. "You need to be careful, though. Balancing both worlds is a double-edged sword. I know you're passionate, but passion alone will not protect you from burnout or disappointment." The words settled hard in her chest, morphing into a subtle tempest inside her mind. "What if I fail?" The question slipped out, an unguarded moment of honesty. "Failure is a part of success, Sarah. You will carve your own path, but don't forget to learn from each stumble." He paused, his voice shifting to a more personal tone. I saw something in you even back when you started. You have the ability to heal, not just the physical wounds but the emotional scars. You need to trust that gift. His insight sparked a flicker of resolve, but self-doubt surfaced once more, nagging at her resolve. And what if the world outside doesn't validate those gifts? What if my family thinks I'm abandoning them? That's the risk of growth. Families can be complicated, but at the end of the day, they want to see you thrive. You might be surprised by their reaction. He leaned forward, his eyes intent on hers. Sometimes, it's about asserting your identity with courage. You have the tools to change the narrative. The tension within her shifted. Could she embrace the idea that her ambitions would not erase her roots, only deepen her understanding of them? As their conversation wound down, Dr. Martinez offered a contemplative look. You know, Sarah, I came here for a reason. I've learned of opportunities for nursing scholarships that align with psychological health initiatives. You should consider applying. A rush of adrenaline surged through her. A door had swung wide open, yet it felt daunting. I'll think about it, she said, masking her excitement with trepidation. After he left, the attic felt transformed. Her grandmother's journal lay open, its pages waving in rapid whispers as if in encouragement. That night, inspired by the mentor who believed in her, Sarah began to draft an application with fierce determination. Ultimately, it was more than just words, it was a declaration of her commitment to herself. But as she typed, shadows flickered by the window, the hint of a storm brewing outside. A gust of wind sent a shiver down her spine, drawing her to the glass. Would the tempest demand a further reckoning, stripping away everything she was beginning to build? And in that moment, she realized this was just the beginning. The storm was not merely the roar of nature but an echo of her own impending trials. The shadows she needed to confront were far closer than she had anticipated. With the weight of uncertainty settled back onto her shoulders, she took a deep breath, preparing to navigate what lay ahead. The time had come for action, but what path would she ultimately take? Sitting at her desk, Sarah's fingers hovered over the laptop keys, hesitation gnawing at her resolve. The mere prospect of applying for the scholarship was both exhilarating and terrifying. She could envision what pursuing her degree would mean: a deeper understanding of her patients and a chance to shape her life in a way that resonated with her true passions. Yet, each time she mustered the confidence to start, a wave of doubt crashed in, echoing Dr. Martinez's warning about the double-edged sword of ambition. Her grandmother's journal lay open beside her, the familiar scent of aged paper evoking nostalgic warmth, yet the words felt like an anchor weighing her down. The stories of resilience and hope threaded within its pages inspired her, but they also cast a shadow of comparison. Did she have what it took to add her own narrative? Did she truly understand the sacrifices it might entail? The wind howled outside, rattling the attic windows, reminder of the storm brewing not just in nature, but within her. Perhaps it was time for a thorough examination of her motivations. What was she truly afraid of? The fear of failure clung to her, but could it be that deeper within, she feared disappointing those she loved? As she slowly typed out her name on the application, a rush of defiance surged through her. This was no longer only about achieving an education, it was a declaration of her willingness to step into her own truth. With each keystroke, she began to untangle the knots of fear that had held her hostage. What if I embraced growth instead of retreat? The thought surprised her, a glimmering pathway opening before her mind's eye. She recalled Dr. Martinez's faith in her abilities. Was he, in essence, reflecting the belief she needed to locate within herself? With newfound determination, she pushed through the sections of the application detailing her experiences at the clinic, her volunteer work, the ways she interacted with patients. She poured her heart into the personal statement, recounting snippets of her journey, how healing had become both a craft and a calling for her. As she neared the end, however, reality crashed in once more. What if her family didn't understand? The thought gnawed at her enthusiasm like a persistent itch. She envisioned their disapproving faces, the weight of their expectations pressing down on her like a lead blanket. Would they regard her aspirations as a dismissal of their values? Stop, she silently commanded herself. Your dreams deserve space to breathe, just like theirs. Perhaps it was time to confront not just her fears but the possible reality of their reactions. Feeling more resolved, Sarah opened her notebook, flipping to a blank page. It was time for a plan to approach her family with honesty, to express her ambitions while assuring them they remained part of her life. Crafting an agenda felt more like crafting her future: talk to Mom, share my plans, listen to their concerns. The more she wrote, the clearer her path appeared. She was no longer merely a caregiver stuck within the bounds of others' expectations, she was becoming the author of her own story, confronting the storm and learning to navigate its currents. With each passing moment, the intensity of the wind outside grew, echoing the tempest of emotions swirling within her. There was beauty in the chaos, she could emerge more finely woven than before. Perhaps, after all, the storm was a necessary force shaking loose the old, outdated parts of her identity. Once the application was complete, Sarah took a step back, her heart racing with anticipation. Now came a new turning point, the confrontation with her family. Could she face the unknown reactions? And just as she gathered her breath to make that next call, a sudden crack of thunder jolted her back to reality, foreshadowing an imminent encounter. This was just the beginning of her true evolution, but would she be able to embrace her emerging self, or would the storm overshadow the light she was so valiantly trying to claim? The crack of thunder echoed in Sarah's mind, causing her heart to race. She grabbed her phone, staring at it as if it were a foreign object. This device, often a lifeline to her family, now felt like a barrier, an unsettling bridge to the unknown. What was she truly afraid of? Rejection? Disillusionment? Or was it simply the fear of discovery, a realization that she might not be the daughter they expected? Taking a deep breath, she braced herself to make the call, her fingers trembling as she dialed her mother's number. Each tone of the ringing echoed her growing anxiety. What would her mother say? Would she support Sarah's decision, or would she remain steadfast in her expectations? The voice on the line snapped her from spiraling thoughts. Hello. Mom, it's me, Sarah said, her voice barely above a whisper. Hi, sweetie. How are you? Her mother's tone was warm, though Sarah sensed a layer of curiosity that made her stomach churn. I've been thinking about my future. The words spilled out in a rush, carried away by the wind rattling the windows. She could feel the ground shifting beneath her, her identity shifting with it. Oh. That sounds serious. A pause, as if her mother was gauging the weight behind Sarah's statement. Sarah gathered her courage. I applied for the scholarship to continue my studies in nursing. The admission felt like unveiling a secret, both liberating and terrifying. I want to deepen my understanding of patient care and become a better nurse. Silence stretched between them like an unending void. The anticipation clawed at Sarah's resolve, making her question whether she had made a colossal mistake. Sarah, do you really think this is the right decision? Her mother finally asked, a hint of worry lacing her words. What will it mean for your job? Your responsibilities here? And there it was, the familiar echo of expectations. Sarah's heart sank momentarily. How had she thought this would be easy? Was ambition inherently selfish? Mom, she pressed, I love my job, but I want to grow. Don't you think it's important for me to pursue what I'm passionate about? The silence stretched again, heavier this time. Of course I want you to be happy, but our family needs you, too. Her mother's voice faltered, laden with the weight of love and obligation intertwined. I know, and I want to make you proud. But I can't ignore this part of me that wants more. She could hear her mother inhale deeply, digesting this new revelation. I just worry. We've always put family first. What if this could help me serve our family better in the long run? Sarah offered, desperation creeping into her tone. I promise it won't mean leaving you behind. It's just a step towards something I deeply believe in. Let us talk about this more, her mother finally said, softer now. We'll figure it out together. A release washed over Sarah. The dam of expectation wasn't completely broken, but a crack had appeared, allowing a sliver of light into the conversation. The journey ahead would be fraught with challenges, but she felt empowered by this moment. Later that evening, Sarah sat in the quiet, reflecting on her conversation. What if that one call was the first step in asserting her identity? Each fear she faced felt like a layer stripped away, revealing a determined core beneath one that sought growth not just for herself, but for those she loved. But deep within, a new fear began to emerge, a realization that this path was not just about her education but also about confronting those who might resist her evolution. The storm outside had calmed, but within her, new winds of change were rising. As she leaned against her desk, an idea crystallized. This was only the beginning of her journey. What awaited her on this road was unexplored territory, both exhilarating and daunting. Tomorrow, she would need to confront those still entrenched in their expectations. In that moment of clarity, she understood that the self she was emerging into would require her to be bolder than she had ever imagined. And with that dawning understanding, she checked her calendar. Tomorrow would be the day she addressed her colleagues about her plans. Would they celebrate her aspirations, or would they question her path? The anticipation was nerve-wracking yet exhilarating. As she turned off the light and closed her notebook, she stepped away from her desk, resolute. Change was intimidating, yet the possibility of growth shimmered ahead. The time had come to face not only her family but the perceptions of those around her, and she couldn't back down now. As morning light filtered through her curtains, Sarah felt the weight of a new day pressing against her shoulders. The silence of her room contrasted sharply with the storm of thoughts swirling in her mind. Would her colleagues be receptive? Would she have the strength to navigate their reactions, particularly from those who had always held strong opinions about her career? Determined, she dressed methodically, each piece of clothing a layer of armor against the uncertainty she would soon face. The reflection in the mirror showed a woman balancing the desire for growth with the comfort of familiarity. She glimpsed herself anew, acknowledging the resolve in her eyes. This wasn't just any ordinary day, it was the first step toward reclaiming her narrative. The smell of coffee filled her apartment. With each sip, she strategized how to present her aspirations in a way that didn't appear reckless. It was essential to articulate her vision clearly. She would focus on her motivations and the potential benefits for both herself and her team, framing her goals in a way that aligned with the collective wellness of their work environment. Arriving at work, Sarah's heart raced. The familiar sights and sounds, a beeping computer, colleagues' chatter, the rustling of papers were engulfed in an unusual haze of anxiety. She made her way to the conference room, her pulse quickening with every step. Today, she wouldn't just be one of the nurses, she would be a voice for her aspirations. Gathering her colleagues, she felt their gaze evaluate her, scrutinizing her intentions. Taking a deep breath, she began to speak, the words tumbling forth like water breaking through a dam. I appreciate the support I've received here, and I love working alongside each of you. But, I want to share my journey towards a nursing scholarship. It's important to me to grow, and I believe that this will not only make me a better nurse but benefit our team as well. She noticed a few familiar faces register surprise, while others showed glimmers of encouragement. It was a tumultuous mixture of emotions, but she pressed on. I want to deepen my understanding of patient care because I know that the better I am, the better I can support all of you. As she continued, there were moments where doubt threatened to encroach upon her confidence, questions about compatibility with work commitments or the fear of what her colleagues would really think. Yet she countered those doubts with her resolve, repeating to herself that this was her truth and that owning it was the only way forward. Then, just as she sensed a semblance of momentum building, one of her colleagues, Greg, interjected. But what if this scholarship means you'll be less available to the team? We rely on you. His tone wasn't dismissive, but the undercurrent of concern for responsibilities hung heavy in the air. The question rattled her. Did she have to justify her ambitions? Was the pursuit of personal growth an indictment of her commitment? "Greg, I understand your concerns, and I share them," she replied carefully, her voice steadying in confrontation. "But I believe investing in my education will enhance my contributions to the unit over time. This journey isn't about stepping away, it's about preparing to bring more back to our work." A few murmurs of agreement broke out among her colleagues, energizing her. She felt the tide beginning to shift as others began to voice their support, offering their own experiences of growth and evolution within their roles. In this exchange, she realized the potential her initiative had to inspire others to pursue their own aspirations, too. As the meeting wrapped up, Sarah felt a portion of her fear lift. She had stepped into her own light and, however small, she felt the confirmation of her journey unfolding. Still, the conversation lingered uncomfortably in her mind, reminding her that not everyone would embrace change easily. This was just a single moment in a larger struggle. The commitment to her personal growth would elicit further challenges and possible opposition. Determined to uphold her aspirations, Sarah exited the conference room with a sense of purpose. But as she walked down the corridor, a thought emerged: how would she navigate the inevitable pushback from others who might cling to their routines and expectations of her? The question replaced a hint of triumph with apprehension, igniting a deeper urgency within her. Tomorrow she would need to prepare for those confrontations, and the weight of that responsibility loomed ahead. She had to be ready. What would her family think when she shared her progress? What if they questioned the choices she was making? Sarah realized that even with this small victory, the bigger battle lay before her, and she had to confront not only the opposition of colleagues but also return to her family, where the real challenge awaited. After the meeting, Sarah sat at her desk, the surrounding hum of activity reduced to a dull background noise as she processed the earlier conversation. Each keystroke felt heavier than usual as she attempted to respond to emails, her thoughts haunted by Greg's question. What if the scholarship did mean she would be less available? Wasn't commitment to her career intrinsically linked to being present for her colleagues? Each ping of a new email notification jolted her, but they also served as reminders that she had a responsibility to her work, a sense of duty cultivated over years. Who was she in this environment if not the experienced nurse that everyone relied upon? She was acutely aware that, should she pursue this scholarship, she could alter the dynamics among her colleagues. But what if that alteration did not diminish her value? Rather, what if it enhanced her contributions? With renewed determination, Sarah opened a blank document on her computer. She began to outline an action plan, specific steps she could take to manage both her career and her academic pursuits effectively. The process of organizing her thoughts empowered her. She had always excelled at planning care for patients. Now, she could apply that same strategic thinking to her professional growth. Her first step: finding a mentor. Having someone within her field who had navigated similar waters could be invaluable. It wasn't just about academics, it was about tapping into the wisdom of someone who understood the unique pressures of nursing. Next, she set clear timelines. The scholarship application deadline was months away, which gave her time to prepare. Balancing work, study, and family commitments required honest assessments of her time and energy. She needed to carve out specific hours each week dedicated solely to study, ensuring she remained committed to her colleagues while also investing in her future. As she completed her plan, the earlier feeling of uncertainty began to fade, replaced by excitement. The scholarship would provide her with opportunities to enhance her skills and, eventually, her effectiveness as a nurse. If she could champion the importance of personal growth in front of her colleagues, perhaps she could eventually lead by example. Later in the evening, Sarah summoned the courage to call her family. She had rehearsed her words but felt an unyielding lump in her throat as she dialed the number. Her mother answered, and they exchanged pleasantries before she could broach the subject. "I have something important to share," Sarah began, standing by the window as dusk fell over the horizon. "I've decided to pursue a scholarship for continuing education." There was silence on the other end. Sarah's heart raced as she braced for the reaction she had imagined. "Isn't that going to take a lot of time away from work?" "You're already so busy, Sarah." Her mother's tone was laced with concern, puncturing the moment. Yes, it will require commitment. But I believe it's crucial for my growth, Sarah replied, forcing her voice to maintain steadiness. I want to be better at what I do, not just for myself but for my patients, too. The dialogue turned into a back and forth of reassurances and parental worries. Her mother's hesitation lingered like a shadow, but Sarah felt an inner surge of resolve. The fight was not just external, it resided within her as she challenged the perceptions of failure and success. As they wrapped up the call, Sarah felt lighter. While the conversation hadn't been easy, it was a part of her journey toward independence, aligned with her desire to grow. Later that night, she couldn't shake the reflection of doubt that surfaced. What if her ambitions strained her family relationships even further? Ignoring it wasn't an option. She had to face these doubts if she wanted to transform them into motivation. As she settled into bed, Sarah realized that this was only the beginning. The pursuit of knowledge often necessitates confrontation not just with others but within oneself. She would have to navigate the waters of family expectations, the legacy of her career, and most disconcertingly her own fears of inadequacy that clawed at her resolve. Tomorrow would bring new conversations that could either deepen her relationships or widen the gaps between them. All of it would demand a continuous commitment to her aspirations. What would happen if she was met with resistance from those she loved most? And if they questioned her choices, would she stand firm in her commitment to evolve? With these questions echoing in her mind, Sarah closed her eyes, bracing herself for the challenges that loomed just ahead. The morning sun crept softly through the curtains, illuminating Sarah's cluttered desk. She blinked against the light, the doubts swirling in her mind from the night before still clinging like cobwebs. Today was the day she would take the first tangible step toward her scholarship. She would seek out a mentor. It felt critical, like embarking on a journey to unknown territory. After a quick breakfast, she headed to the hospital, the steady rhythm of her heartbeat keeping time with her resolve. Her mind raced through the names of experienced nurses and doctors she respected. Who would be willing to help her navigate this uncharted path? It wasn't just about finding someone to offer advice. She sought someone who resonated with her vision for growth and excellence in nursing. As she passed the nurses' station, Sarah spotted Anne, a senior nurse known for her leadership and unwavering commitment to patient care. The way she approached every patient with compassion and thoroughness inspired many. Sarah gathered her courage, her heart fluttering at the prospect of approaching her. She structured her thoughts, rehearsing a quick pitch in her mind. "Hey, Anne. Do you have a moment?" Sarah called, catching her as she organized a stack of medical records. And turned, offering a warm smile. "Of course, Sarah. What's on your mind?" Taking a deep breath, Sarah shifted from foot to foot, her nerves raw. "I'm looking to grow in my career, and I've decided to pursue a scholarship that will require more education and commitment. I was wondering if you'd consider being my mentor during this process." And raised an eyebrow, clearly contemplating the request. "That's admirable, but why do you think you need a mentor? You're already quite accomplished." The question sent a jolt through Sarah. It forced her to confront the very purpose of her desire for mentorship. "I want to expand my skills and knowledge, not just for my own growth, but to better serve our patients," she replied, her tone steady. "I believe learning from someone with more experience could illuminate aspects I might not see." After a slight pause, Anne leaned back slightly, her expression softening. "I appreciate your honesty and drive, Sarah. I'd be happy to help guide you if you're committed to the process." Relief washed over Sarah, her heart swelling with gratitude. "Thank you. I promise I won't waste your time." As they talked about potential goals and the scholarship's requirements, Sarah felt a growing excitement. This partnership could unlock doors she had barely considered before. Yet, alongside that excitement came a creeping anxiety. Could she truly balance this new commitment against her responsibilities at work and home? Later that day, as Sarah navigated her shift, her mind oscillated between her ongoing duties and the mentorship experience. Every patient interaction became a reflection of what she aimed to achieve through the scholarship. She noticed new details, wondered about advanced techniques, and imagined innovative approaches to care. However, the nagging concern about balancing her professional obligations loomed overhead like a dark cloud. The day wore on, and each task felt increasingly burdensome. The fear that her ambitions might stretch her too thin resurfaced. Would pursuing this dream cast a shadow over the relationships she held dear? That evening, she declined an invitation from friends, choosing instead to refine her study schedule to include time spent with Anne. As she opened her laptop, she felt the tension of the day's doubts weigh heavily, but she also sensed a flicker of clarity. She was setting the stage for something greater than herself, an evolution that required sacrifice. Then, out of nowhere, a sudden email notification disrupted her focus. It was a message from Greg, checking in and asking about her progress since their last chat. She hesitated before responding, the ghost of his earlier question looming. How could she articulate her ambitions without sounding reckless? With renewed vigor, Sarah began to type, each word a step toward asserting her path. But deep down, she questioned whether she would be met with support or skepticism from others, as both her colleagues and her family loomed large in her mind. As she hit send, her thoughts danced between hope and trepidation. Would sharing her journey push her closer to her goals or widen the rift in her relationships? The uncertainty gnawed at her, as she prepared to confront the responses that might follow, both from Greg and those closest to her. The temptation to retreat into her comfort zone flickered faintly. Would she stand firm against the tide of doubt? Or would she let her aspirations drown in the undertow of others' expectations? The reality of tomorrow brought a new challenge, one that could define the trajectory of her growth in ways she hadn't yet comprehended. The next morning, Sarah's mind was a whirlwind of thoughts as she prepared for her shift. Despite the flicker of determination spurred by her mentorship with Anne, the shadows of anxiety lingered, as if reminding her of the delicate balance she was attempting to master. Each task beckoned for her attention, yet her ambition was vying for space in her ever-demanding life. She was not only a nurse but also a friend, a daughter, and, more recently, an aspiring student. As she arrived at the hospital, the aroma of antiseptic filled the air, mixing with the faint sounds of patients' murmurs echoing through the corridors. She caught a glimpse of Anne, already in deep conversation with a team of new hires. Watching her mentor's ease and authority in handling the situation inspired and intimidated Sarah. Would she ever find that level of confidence? During her shift, the patient interactions became a mirror for her personal growth. Dealing with challenging cases pushed her to recall the insightful lessons from nursing school, yet the scholarship's requirements began weighing heavily on her. Time management was an immediate concern. Would she have enough hours in a day to meet the expectations set by both her work commitments and the mentorship? A particularly tough day arrived when they encountered a critically ill patient that required 24-hour care. It left Sarah emotionally drained. By the time her shift ended, she could barely muster the energy to scan her notes from her study sessions. Later in the break room, a mix of exhaustion and frustration bubbled over. "What's going on with you?" Greg asked, sliding into the chair next to her. His casual inquiry pulled her back into the reality of her situation. She could see the concern etched across his face. There it was again. Beneath the layers of assertiveness lay a fear of disappointing those who cared about her. "I just feel like I'm at a crossroads," Sarah admitted, vulnerability creeping into her voice. "I want this scholarship, but I'm worried about losing touch with everything else in my life. If I manage my time poorly, what if I jeopardize my relationships? Or worse, my ability to care for my patients?" Greg leaned closer, listening intently. "You need to learn how to set boundaries. Pursuing your goals is important, but so is knowing when to step back. You can't help others if you're running on empty." His words hung in the air, both validating her struggle and intensifying the knot in her stomach. She could accept that there was merit in his observation, yet putting it into practice felt like an insurmountable challenge. As the shadows of doubt grew along with her aspirations, she resolved to define her boundaries not just for her studies, but also regarding her social life. She spent her evenings refining a planner assigned by and that integrated self-care with her academic goals. But then, as if fate were testing her resolve, a last-minute invitation arrived for an important event for friends she hadn't seen in months. The allure of laughter and familiarity tugged at her heart, and for several tense moments, she hovered between obligation and ambition. Taking a shaky breath, she crafted a message letting them know she couldn't attend. Then, almost instinctively, she sent it, an impulsive decision that startled her as soon as she hit send. Was she committing to her dream or shutting down vital connections in her life? The clock ticked solemnly as she weighed the pros and cons, realizing that every choice came with a price. Ambition could lead her away from warmth and compassion, but it could also be her pathway to deeper understanding. Therein lay her conflict. The essence of her development hung in this precarious balance. As she headed home that evening, a message notification from Anne lit up her phone. "Let us meet tomorrow to discuss your progress. I have some insight about navigating challenges." A mix of excitement and trepidation rushed through her. She wrestled with yet another question. Would this meeting push her forward, or would it surface the insecurities she'd been trying to manage? Her optimism dimmed under a surge of worry. Could she truly rise to the expectations set by her mentor, fellow nurses, and herself? As she lay in bed that night, questions flooded her mind. Only one thought stood out with a sharp urgency: had she, in her pursuit of excellence, unwittingly become her own obstacle? Tomorrow loomed large. One decision could shift the course of her journey dramatically. Would she embrace the challenges ahead, or retreat further into doubt? The moment of truth approached, and the outcomes felt tantalizingly close yet terrifyingly obscure. The next morning, Sarah woke to sunlight streaming through her window, illuminating her thoughts along with the remnants of the emotional storm she had navigated in recent days. Today marked the meeting with Anne, a pivotal juncture on her journey toward both her scholarship and personal growth. Nerves fluttered in her stomach like butterflies, yet there was a burgeoning sense of possibility woven through the fabric of her fears. As she prepared for the day, Sarah reflected on the themes that had emerged over the past week's: boundaries, courage, and the intertwining of personal ambition with familial duty. Today, she would voice these reflections, confronting not only her mentor's guidance but her doubts, which had kept her tethered to a past that no longer served her aspirations. Arriving at the hospital, the familiar sounds of beeping monitors and distant conversations filled her with a mix of comfort and anxiety. She spotted Anne at the nurse's station, busy organizing patient files. Taking a deep breath, Sarah approached her, determined to articulate where she stood in the midst of all this. "Hey, Anne," she began, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "Thank you for agreeing to meet. I think I really need your guidance as I face these challenges with the scholarship process." Anne welcomed her into a private room, her demeanor both warm and professional. "Absolutely, Sarah. I've been eager to hear about your progress," she said, settling into the conversation with ease. Once seated, Sarah forced down the trepidation swellings in her stomach and shared her recent struggles, balancing her aspirations with the competing obligations of her work and family. "I feel like I constantly walk a tightrope. I want to pursue this scholarship, yet I also fear disappointing everyone around me," she admitted, embracing the vulnerability that came with opening up. And listened intently, her brow furrowing in thought. "Those concerns are completely valid," she said, picking up on Sarah's emotional cues. "The fear of letting people down can be paralyzing, but what you're pursuing can also enhance your ability to serve your patients and your team." The clarity of Anne's acknowledgement resonated deeply within her. This conversation was not merely about her scholarship, it was a conversation about permission to grow and permission to expect more from herself. "You're already a strong nurse, but evolving into an even more skilled one means ensuring your dreams aren't sidelined," and continued, her tone reflecting conviction. "The journey you're on is not just for you, it's about everything you can offer to your profession, your patients, and even your family." After a moment of silence, Anne introduced a pivotal question. "What if you reframed failure? Instead of seeing it as something to fear, what if you considered it a stepping stone toward progress?" The notion hit Sarah like a gale, a profound yet simple shift in perspective. She had conditioned herself to view every decision through the lens of expectations, first from her family, and later from her colleagues. But in reframing failure, she could transform that narrative. "I need to invest in this journey without the chains of fear," she replied, her voice stronger as each realization cut its way through doubt. "There's no need to rush," and warned gently. "Success is often a slow burn, requiring persistence and self-compassion. But the first step is recognizing that you are worthy of growth and self-discovery." With newfound clarity, Sarah shifted the focus to the logistics of her scholarship aspirations. Together, they developed an actionable plan that balanced study hours, mentorship responsibilities, and her work at the clinic. The path she charted felt sustainable rather than overwhelming, a newfound sense of control enveloping her. As Anne walked her through the practical steps, Sarah began to visualize her ambition merging with actionable strategy. After their meeting, Sarah experienced an unusual lightness about her and excitement for her aspirations intertwined with an awareness of her limits. Building on this sense of momentum, she decided to pause and reflect further on her moments of doubt, not just with her mentor but with her family as well. Later that evening, she dialed her mother's number again, the growing confidence from her meeting buoying her resolve. "Mom, I'd like to discuss the scholarship further," she began, purposefully choosing her words. "I know you're concerned about my time, but talking it out could help both of us understand it better." Her mother was receptive this time, acknowledging her need to talk about the tough decisions ahead. Together, they navigated a heartfelt conversation about ambition and family, leading to a shared understanding that personal fulfillment could enhance rather than compete against familial love. In that moment, Sarah discovered a powerful truth: her mother's acceptance could be a catalyst rather than a limitation in her desire to excel. With the day's discussions under her belt, a sense of validation settled within her. She was no longer just Sarah, the nurse. She was Sarah, a woman pursuing her dreams with intent and clarity. As she looked into the mirror that night, she recognized the transformation that had begun within, a burgeoning confidence that defied both familial obligations and deeply rooted fears. Through this commitment, Sarah was beginning to carve out a future where professional aspirations did not eclipse her relationships but rather enriched their depth. Tomorrow, she would reach out to her colleagues again, fostering connections that mirrored her inner resolve. It was time not only to own her ambitions but also to embrace the beauty of shared journeys. As she drifted off to sleep, she vowed to herself she would continue sharpening her skills, evolving not at the expense of her loved ones but as a testament to the legacy they had nurtured within her. Stepping into her potential was not only an act of growth but a celebration of everything that came before her: the love, the sacrifices, and the dreams that had shaped her path. In this new light, she felt solid confidence. The path ahead remained challenging, but now, armed with a supportive network and a strong sense of self, Sarah stepped into a future of promise, forgetful of nothing and ready to take on it all. Now is the time. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and support our journey together. Comment your thoughts and theories about this extraordinary ending. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with 5 friends who need to experience this powerful conclusion. Your support matters.